Hello everybody and welcome to the build-up for the game tomorrow against Liverpool. I'm looking forward to it as ever. I've put together a little tactics board to go through the different permutations I imagine from this game and just to get my face back up a little bit bigger on the screen. It is a big game. It is a tough game. It's a real test for us as a club to see where we've come. I want to see ambition in moments. I'm not expecting West Ham to go out there and maybe press as high as we did against Genk and leave spaces open. I think it's a game for West Ham to be resolute, but when we're looking at some of the games that we've played so far this season, despite losing to Manchester United, the performance was decent without Antonio. We beat them in the Cup. We beat Manchester City in the Cup. This is an opportunity for West Ham to be brave in moments. Understand and recognise the threat, of course. I actually feel, having watched the game Liverpool versus Brighton, that there are areas of Brighton's play in the second half that suit West Ham. So it does feel like there's a bit of a game plan already there for Moyes to implement and to work with the players that we've already got. Now, the biggest question mark that I've seen in terms of selection, we can talk about predicted 11s, I guess. Again, for me, it picks itself really at the minute. The only argument would be Areola versus Fabianski, although Fabianski's form in the league has been relatively decent. And again, other than that, you're not looking maybe Soufal versus Johnson, but I think Johnson will have to keep his place. I think it's whether you go with a back four or a back five. Now, completely understand the merit of the back five. And to be honest, if this was last season, I would have said, let's just go 3-4-3 or 5-4-1. Okay, it's worked before. You can deal with the wide areas. Liverpool, in particular, with the likes of Trent and Salah and Henderson down that right, they heavily overload it. And it does become an issue for teams to deal with. And again, it presents a big problem to our left-hand side with Cress and Fornals. So completely understand the reasons for maybe adding someone like a Ben Johnson as a left wing-back and then having Vladimir Soufal as the right wing-back. But in my opinion, I feel that we should go still with the back four. Now, of course, it depends how you play the back four. I can completely envisage this happening, it becoming very narrow at times, and these two in particular, Fornals and Jarrod Bowen, receding a little bit to protect these wide areas. Now, that's crucial. It doesn't necessarily mean that all of a sudden West Ham are going to be able to deal with it by just putting the attacking players slightly deeper and protecting wide areas. The reason why I've gone with it primarily is because A, West Ham can play like this with the two wide attacking midfielders protecting the wide areas. But B, if you do add Ben Johnson as a left wing back and you add Soufal in there, you do lose a midfielder. And I saw moments, particularly for Brighton against Liverpool, where by packing the midfield and dealing with these spaces, and again, there's a lot of pressure here, and you're going to have Declan Rice and Souček possibly pressing a little bit further out, maybe Benny dropping in at times to collect the ball. You're dealing with this space very, very well. Of course, that does mean you're going to have to rely on Creswell to win his individual duel. Fornals to push and press against Trent Alexander-Arnold. You want Trent as far away from that right-hand side and this area in particular as possible. In theory, that should be enough. And of course, naturally, that presents an issue when Salah starts drifting in between these spaces. Sometimes he'll find himself out very wide on the right. Other times he'll try and cut in with the half space. I would just go with the idea that Moyes is going to have this back four very tight, very compact, and therefore we are going to try and reduce Liverpool's threat, particularly down this side, pushing Salah a little bit central, and West Ham are going to have to pack the midfield area and use our attacking three players in there, possibly to transition. Now, I suppose the next question mark would be, how do you deal with Liverpool? How do you deal with their threat? Of course, in this game, I think Jota's going to come in. He's a problem in terms of his positioning, where he can pick up from. And I guess it's always the case with Liverpool, isn't it, with the front three, that interchangeability. I've seen Salah pick up positions far wide right. I've seen him play an inside forward. Mane in particular, in recent games, plays this position very well, coming in central and being a main aerial threat within the box. It's exactly the same for Jota. Without Firmino, I think West Ham reduce the risk of a player that's going to drop into little pockets in and around here, going to overload us, and it's going to be hard for us to get possession. So I do think it possibly benefits West Ham slightly more if we are a little bit more compact, if we are slightly deeper, for the back four to set back, to deal with the aerial ability of someone like a Jota, the crosses from the right-hand side, and for us to use our strengths in Ogbonna and Zuma to deal with that. The problem, I guess, and I think I can understand why people want the back five again, agree, but hear me out. The problem is when you've got this situation. Now, we know Liverpool are going to play a high line. We know Konate is going to be wide. We know Van Dijk's going to be wide. And we obviously know that Robertson down this left-hand side is going to bomb on and try and get past Jarrod Bowen. Hence why I want two attacking midfield players deep. The issue with Liverpool and why they are so good and why they've been so effective under Klopp is the movement. It's the movement of those midfield players, whether it's Oxlade-Chamberlain. Obviously, Fabinho provides a little bit of resistance there. Henderson is a defensive outlet, but also as a presser of the ball. And they're happy to interchange positions. So you're looking at it defensively from West Ham. We have to be as compact as possible. And I think we have to be very, very conservative. We have to try and nullify those spaces, reduce those gaps, because Liverpool's midfielders will find different positions. The front three are very flexible in terms of where they're trying to find the space as well, particularly Jota, particularly Mane. Salah's slightly, I wouldn't say easier to read because, let's be honest, he's a world-class player and arguably the best player in the world at the minute. But I think just because of the starting position of him and just because Liverpool's attack is very heavy down that right-hand side, it's easier, I think, for West Ham to read. But that really just depends on how strong West Ham are individually in terms of dealing with those duels. The positive in this game, and I know people will think, well, okay, you've just set up a really negative team here. You're probably looking at more of a 4-4-2 if we're honest. I can't even see a 4-4-2 here. I think it'd be smart from Moyes to obviously. I think Souček at times and Dek at times will find themselves right in front of those back two. I think Benny, if he's playing the role, particularly how he played it against Genk, dropping deep, picking up the ball and transitioning effectively, you'd hope that particularly with his improvement in terms of pressing in these areas, that it will stop Liverpool overloading us. And that is crucial for West Ham. You keep the shape of the back four, and these three players, particularly in central midfield, are able to try and mitigate and push Liverpool further back and make it difficult for them to play through us. But, and this is interesting for me because I think Brighton identified it, and they were very clever to identify it, was the idea that Liverpool are weak, particularly when they lose the ball, and it's very difficult for them to get back into their shape if West Ham can counter intelligently. And I put it in the title for a reason. West Ham are a fantastic counter-attacking side, absolutely. In terms of transitions against Aston Villa, superb. The hold-up play from Michail Antonio, we know his ability to run the channels. In this game, West Ham, and the reason why you need someone like a Fornals in there as opposed to playing a back five, you want an extra attacking player for the overload. And the overload that we always talk about and that is so effective in the Premier League is Benrahma, Antonio, Bowen, and Pablo Fornals, as you can see there. Now, in terms of the build-up and where West Ham could be very, very effective is A, the fact that Liverpool play the high line, particularly with possession. Trent is very far forward. Yes, of course, Henderson gives that protection and gives him the license to get on as well as counter-press and keep the ball. But you look at Cress as well. Now, this is a big test for Cresswell, and absolutely, I think it does put pressure on him in terms of a back four in dealing with Salah. I will say this about Cress. He has improved in his individual duels. I think Euroexpert actually pulled up a stat this week saying he's been his most successful season in dealing with duels. He's been better in the air. I think him 1v1 as well has improved. If Cresswell can read the game well enough from a deep position, I think that's key here. The fact that he is so deep, it will benefit him in terms of reading those positions. I back Cress in terms of this distribution in the wide areas where Brighton was so clever against Liverpool. They didn't try and play through Liverpool, but you've got Henderson, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Fabinho in terms of counter-press, regaining the ball here. You don't play through Liverpool centrally. You try and isolate them in the wide areas. A couple of teams have done it over the past few seasons or so. Again, very difficult when you're playing up against the quality that they have. But, like I say, Cress with the delivery and his distribution with his left foot is fantastic. Every single game you watch Cresswell play, he will try and play down that left channel. And I think if West Ham are clever enough and intelligent enough on the transition, Fornals will make that run in behind Trent. And again, it's a big ask for Fornals in this game. He has to protect Cress. He has to allow him to play slightly central to stop these half spaces. But he's also got to make those intelligent runs in beyond Trent to pick up the ball. Now, this presents a problem for Liverpool. Immediately, if Fornals is receiving the ball here, the same will go for Jarrod Bowen. Konate's got a big question. Can he get over and deal with Fornals? Now, individually, you'd argue that he probably could. But if Antonio can come off to this left-hand side like we've seen him do previously, if Benrahma's making that movement in beyond and Jarrod's making the movement at the far post, now Liverpool have got a big problem. Because yes, of course, they work hard out of possession. They will try and reset, get into the shape. But the overload is huge. Naturally, when you're talking about this type of movement, the quality in terms of possession absolutely has to be there. Ball retention is a massive thing generally in this game. I imagine Fabianski at times will look to go long to Antonio. Please, can West Ham, particularly from a distribution aspect, either use Thomas Souček, making an additional run and use his aerial ability, or get it to Antonio's feet and hold the ball up, because that's where it's becoming less successful. And against Liverpool, you cannot afford to give the ball away so cheaply. But back to the counter-attack, I think peeling off against Konate, Antonio can make the movement there. Benny can make the movement in beyond. And West Ham can really hurt them off the ball, on the ball, but you've got to be brave. You have to be brave. And again, like I said earlier, the same relies on Jarrod Bowen. West Ham typically from deep line defensive areas do make that similar pass. Robertson will be exactly the same, high and wide on that left-hand side, and Bowen will make that run wide. And again, it is the onus on Benrahma to transition and make the movement, Michail Antonio to offer himself, because if Liverpool can't set, West Ham do have the ability to get in beyond the two centre-backs, as good as they are. And believe me, Van Dijk is a Rolls-Royce of a centre-back. Konate, exactly the same. Both used to playing in a high line. So they understand the weaknesses and the vulnerabilities of doing that. The reason why they're so good for Liverpool is because they've got the athleticism and really good reading of the game and physicality, ultimately, to deal either individually with the duels or ultimately they're comfortable enough in possession to play around the press. You can't see for the life of me West Ham playing the press in this game. But if Mickey's making that movement in the channel there, alongside Fornals, Benrahma's making the move centrally, and Bowen's doing this, again, the overload is a lot. But again, like I say, there are large periods of this game where Cress will be narrow, Johnson will be narrow, Rice and Souček will be sitting deep. Benny will have to work hard, particularly out of possession and cutting passing lanes, because as much as Souček and Rice are a fantastic double pivot, and in particular Declan, you do need to deal with that overload here. And even from that perspective, you know, I think people might say, well, Benrahma can pick up the ball in these areas. We know Rice has been a fantastic progressor of the ball so far this season. I wouldn't even encourage it, just because as good as they are, and listen, West Ham may have the quality, and I'm not writing it off not happening, because Declan can carry the ball well. We can beat their lines. We can force them into pressing us, and they can lose the ball, and you can introduce the attacking players from that point on. But you just need to keep your discipline in this game, because Henderson, Fabinho, and Oxlade-Chamberlain are well versed in regaining the ball out of possession. So are Konate, and so are Van Dijk. So West Ham have to keep their shape and their resoluteness here defensively. But when we've got the opportunity, use these wide areas, exploit them, stretch the centre-backs whenever we've got a chance. And that will be the way that West Ham can get a result in this game. It's a tough test, and it will rely on a lot of patience. The concentration levels will be very, very high, particularly when you're looking at Angelo and Zuma. If we're looking into this and we're going to be positive about this, and I do believe that we should look to get a result in this game. And it will be tough, and a point would be brilliant. A win would be unbelievable, but it does fit into our strengths. We can transition from deep. We are intelligent in terms of our movement. Our discipline in a low block is very good, but it does rely on patience. It does rely on concentration. And if West Ham can play that and be brave, and Moyes, to be fair to him, in these type of games, I've seen it. I even saw it against City for 10 minutes trying to play through their press. Would I ask to do that against Liverpool? Absolutely not, because you look at their centre-backs, you look at their full-backs, they're primed to regain possession very, very quickly if West Ham try and play through. And it puts pressure on our attacking players to hold the ball up effectively. It may not happen. But, and a big but here, West Ham are very good on the counter. We have to be ambitious. And the way that we attack teams into the space is with that 4. But they have just got to be brave. And we've got to be clever about how we play through Liverpool. So in terms of a score prediction, I'm going to go on the fence and say 1-1. It'll be so tight. It will be so tight. And I imagine Liverpool will dominate the ball for large periods of the game. I think West Ham will threaten at times. I think we'll look dangerous on the counter. I think our movement will be relatively good. And I think from set pieces, naturally, we're always a threat. And if West Ham can overload that box, particularly from free kicks and corners, that's another way to hurt Liverpool. But we've got to be realistic here. They are, for me, and I know they've lost points and they're not top of the league at the minute, they are the best team in the league for me. And they are an absolute nightmare to deal with. But it doesn't mean that West Ham can't do it. We have improved from last season. I am looking forward to the game. Let me know in the comment section what you think about team selection, what you think about game plan. Do you think West Ham can get a result in this game? I'm going to the game tomorrow, so if you do see me, say hello. I am looking forward to it nonetheless. Take care, everybody. We'll speak tomorrow. We'll go over it, and fingers crossed, listen, we've got a positive result going into the international break. Take care.